recording, and we are live. So today is 10th November, and we are here to Tinkerbell weekly contributor meeting. Dan has his t-shirt finally, so that's good. It's great. Swags are coming. So let me share my screen. Let me share my screen. Here. And so just a brief topic from me. As I said before, we're gonna move this, we're gonna do a test. So we're gonna move this meeting from a weekly to a bi-weekly based. We skipped a couple of them recently, and yeah, let's see if it will fit better for our current workload. So first things first, Manny, do you want to take over from here and do a introduction to OZ? No, it doesn't want to do it, apparently. So I don't know who wrote the, oh yeah, Haman, you're the next one. So in the meantime, do you want to share with us your proposal?
Yeah, sure. So can you please open the proposal number 31 on your screen, or should I
Yeah,
share my screen?
you can share your screen, I presume. Let me see if I can give you the power. Yes, now you can.
Okay, just a minute. Here it is. So are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we see your screen.
Yeah. Yeah. So as we were talking about in proposal number 13, 14, and 15 that we will be like having kind of everything inside a workflow, right? So if you check this out, then this means like these things, there's a new entity, I would rather say, called services, which was not a part of, which is actually not a part of template currently, has been added inside the template, right? So what I would like to propose is, so from going forward, there might be a possibility, for example, if we implement this 13, proposal number 13, if this goes to implementation part, then in that case, for the existing user who are using the current structure, okay, that so what I would like to achieve is like to support all the versions of template, or having the template versioning, so that we can support backward compatibility as well, right? So yeah, so for example, this is like if we change it to 0.1 to 0.2, so I would like rather go here. So if you will see, I think Jason had a look on it, and he also proposed about that Kubernetes already take care of this with the storage versions. I'm not sure about that, how it works, but yeah, if Jason will provide his opinion on that. But till now, so the goals are the provide template versioning, so that current format schema of the template should be compatible as well as with the new one. So for example, if we implement proposal number 30, my template schema is going to change, and the older schema is no longer be supported. And then, for example, the existing user will gonna face the issue. So yeah, so I would so for example, if you talk about the content, so in that case, if we implement this feature, this will make the life of existing user a bit easier, because user does not need to migrate to a new template schema, since we have the support of existing template as well. and user will also have the flexibility of using the kind of template he or she should like to use. In other words, whichever template schema is fit for his or her use case, right? So as per the proposal number 13, we have services like password receiver or traffic routers or whatever. So for example, if somebody wants to have a very basic workflow, which like just in hello world, like, so we will not require all these things to work with. It will simply require Tink services, a Tink server, and Tink client to execute a proposal, right? So to execute a workflow. So in that case, we can use the existing template. So this is the current template that we use. We support the volumes, we support the environment variables on task level, on action levels. This is the current level, and this is the structure in which the current template is being passed, right? So, and once this proposal number 13 will come into picture, and will have this kind services as a new identity or new entity in the template, which have multiple services like this and that. So in that case, we have to introduce something in the Go code as well, right? Which will be called services, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand your concern. It's a real concern. I mean, the versioning for the template
Yeah,
is a problem, and that's why there is the version field. About the 0013 is an additive change that won't
yeah,
do a
right.
busy break. So
Yeah, so that's why I've called it zero point 0.1 and I've called it this 0.2. So on the basis of versions, we will call the parsing functions or some few other functions. We can have different functions for different versions, or there might be a possibility that few of the functions can be same uh, for the same cases, right? So this will be more of a use when we have a kind of possibility or a requirement when we remove any of the field from this template. In that case, that will gonna be super effective,
yeah, I
right?
mean, what is the like? I don't know the code there, but I suppose that from a user perspective, are you suggesting to add any new field? I mean, we have a version field that I presume is not used. Uh,
No, no, I'm not. So I'm not basically adding want to add new field and in the template. What I would like to do is so whenever this 13 will be in the implementation phase, we should also implement the versioning, so that first of all, whenever a template goes up or maybe whenever we create a workflow, so while creating a template, it actually parsed it and then it just simply dumped into the database. And then while creating a workflow, it actually retrieve the template from the database, and that then it goes into the structure. That's why the structure called the structure name is workflow, right? And then it this devices and provisioner one will be replaced uh, whenever it is required, right? While
Um,
creating a workflow. So I would like to do is while when we implement this, so before creating a workflow or whenever we call the create workflow API, first we will check which version is this, right? So that will be a kind of basically a wrapper. There will be a wrapper structure kind of, which will have only version field, right? And every template must to have a version field. And on the basis of the version, we can compare those with the versions right now. If it is 0.1 or 0.2, on the basis of that, we can go ahead and create the workflow or execute it.
yeah, I will have a look at the proposal and see, and we'll leave a comment in there. So,
Sure. So yeah, I asked in the channel as well to you, Manny, and Dan, I think to have a look at the proposal and provide a comment over it if you think. I think mm, Jason had a look, I think, over it, and Jason
um,
has provided a comment. So Jason is there, I guess, right? Jason, yeah. So Jason,
Yeah.
can you please like can you please explain a bit, because I'm a bit confused about it, that how we can handle this with the having of a storage version.
So I think it comes down to more implementation details rather than high level here. And, um, you know, it, since this is mainly an additive change, I think it would be relatively simple to implement. The storage version could just be whatever the newest version is. I think things get a little bit more complicated if we start talking about, breaking changes and want to maintain that forward and backward compatibility. Then we need to figure out how do we properly handle that.
Yeah, so if I'm getting you correctly, so you're suggesting that instead of comparing the versions, we should store the version as a separate field in the template table in the database?
No, well, it depends.
Yeah,
It depends on how we want to handle this. In general, the way Kubernetes does it does store them as two different versions, and then you have to deal with an external conversion process. Since we have the data in an actual database, we can deal with kind of in-place migrations of that data as part of the data migration. So we don't necessarily have to replicate that behavior. It's just more, thinking about what version is the actual stored resource versus, converting that back to the old version of the resource. We need to be able to handle those conversions for
yeah, definitely.
when folks are requesting the earlier version versus the older version.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so in that, yeah, I think your point, you had a good point. So I think it would be good to have, if we have a new field, which is called as like versions in the template, and then based on the value of that version key or the entity, we can fill that column, and on the basis of that column we can identify, okay, this template is from versioning 0.2 and this needs to be handled in this way. And then if it comes to conversion, for example converting a particular template from a particular version to a different version, that can also be done using the version column in the template table in database.
Yeah,
Yep. So
we
I
have
think
I
yeah.
think, move it offline for now because we have other items in the agenda. But we know there is a proposal, and I just got like busy with other stuff this week, but I will get to it, and I hope Dan and the other people here will get there as well at some point. So thank you for placing it together, and yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. Yeah, so this is from on my side. Now, if Manny is there, yeah, so we can start with Ozzy if Manny is ready.
Yes, I am here. Um, Ozzy, let me share my screen. I would prefer for this to be kind of very much Q&A. I think I'll give a quick brain dump and any questions. Where's the share screen? Or there we go. Open up any questions as soon as possible, right? So we can kind of get those figured out faster. Oh, I actually have to quit and come back because I don't have the Zoom enabled for Mac. So give me one moment. I'll be right back.
Yep. I can sing, so I won't do it. Just have to wait. I don't think I can hear Manny. I don't know if it's just me.
It's just me. No. I was about to say that.
Manny, we can hear you if you're speaking.
Or if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, okay, sorry. All right. So Ozzy has a bunch of jobs, right? One of the like its main job and its main job kind of going forward is to just kind of be the innate environment, right? Where we boot into and then we execute workflows, right? And it kind of has this separate job of what we now call the workflows, right? Of actually installing operating systems. Deprovisioning machines, wiping stuff, and things like that, right? There's also work going on to kind of integrate a what is it? Actually, I think it's private. I can't show it yet. I'm not signed in, but it's meant to be open source. The what is it, like a OS or a machine discovery kind of workflow to kind of discover you know the kind of inventory machines and kind of submit them to Tinkerbell for the hardware definitions. And so Ozzy kind of was an easy place to throw all those things into. Its big job is to boot up, right? And so we boot up in Alpine, we build Alpine kernels, and mostly for x86 64, right? That's when we have support pretty easily for the most support for. We do have kind of kernel dumps for other architectures. ARM being ARM, it's kind of and these being kind of early ARM machines, is it this, you know, the single kernel didn't quite work out from the vendors. And so most of these do not have like kind of mainline support that we kind of boot off of easily. I know we have we have work to try to get there. I'm not sure how far we'll actually make it with the state of some like the ARM vendors kind of going down and stuff like that. So we'll see. And so what you know, this kind of just builds the Alpine kernels in a container, so it's, you know, pretty reproducible. It's not bulletproof, but it's pretty nice. It's a pain to build. It'll take a while, but you can do it. Recently done it myself. Excuse me. So that gives us the assets that we put into, right? The Alpine kernel and the Alpine init file and the Alpine modules file. And for x86, we try to host that internally, right? We boot that from memory. So we can kind of get away from the network as soon as possible. And the workflow stuff kind of came out because of Ozzy Runner, right? Inside of Docker here, we have an app, which is like the Ozzy app. It's like the legacy scripts to do the provisioning, deprovisioning, CPR, things like that. And these are things that like kind of workflows will retarget. We have an internal repo that I think we'll be open sourcing pretty soon, that kind of just takes all these things out and breaks them out into separate workflows, workflow actions. So this is Ozzy. That is one of the apps we run, right? And then Ozzy Runner is the other one, and this is kind of where Tinkerbell came out of. This came out as a, you know, this came about to support pre-installs, which is where you get the little Thunderbolt icon in the console. And the target is to kind of be able to install and kind of get to a machine within 60 seconds of you know, a customer or client requesting a machine. And then we do that is with this pre-install, right? We'll go and we will install a certain number of Ubuntu's and CentOS and things like that. And we'll get to about as far as we can. We can generally do partitioning. We can lay out files. And as soon as a request comes in, we can finish up in the happy case. We can finish up by just kind of updating the network IPs and host name and then reboot. And if not, well, we're at least already booted into a live environment that we know about. And so we can just kind of reinstall pretty easily. And so Ozzy Runner has this kind of waiting for actions to come in or kind of states to change. Um, and so that's kind of where we at Packet at the time started kind of thinking about, reacting to events and things like that from the provision flow. And that kind of is what led into Tinkerbell and kind of actions and be able to define things from YAML and things like that. At some point, this will kind of all go away from Aussie, right? Especially, I think mostly kind of when internally we start deploying Tinkerbell to production. And workflows to production, we can kind of get rid of that. But for the meantime, it's kind of nice to have it all packaged up and kind of continue to move and work the way we've been working. A bunch of the things like I want to get rid of from here, the grub files, they really don't have any reason to be here. They should be part of the workflows. And so I envision that this would just kind of be the Alpine installation and the booting into the lab environment to kind of run the workflows. And then everything else will be living in separate repositories. It's a huge code base. The make files certainly nothing to try to study. It's hard to study, but it works for the most part. I do have kind of an idea of replacing Alpine with NixOS actually. Right, for the ability to kind of pin down all the versions of things we need, like Docker, and kind of more easily set that up. And in theory, it should make like the make files and building things much easier and easier to kind of move forward with. And we'll see whenever I get some chance to work on that and see if that actually pans out. So I hope that's good enough as a brain dump. And any questions, I would be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, so many main thing that we were looking for this brain dump or this KT session is because of the large size of Aussie, because of which for the initial stage user have to wait to download that 1.7 GB, I guess, something like that, that much of chunk before executing the workflow, right? So we were in plan, if you remember, I think couple of months back, we were planning to put it like slicing the Aussie, or maybe because we cannot download anything specific from a tar file. So if we want to basically slicing the Aussie on the basis of architecture or the distros, right? Or basically the kind of architecture only. So for x86, we should have a different tar file. For ARM, we should have a different tar file. So in that case, the size of the tar will be very less as compared to the current tar file, right?
Yeah, I think it might be we can do that, or we can just, I think, instead of uploading to S3 just like the full final tarball, we can I think maybe the easiest way would be kind of continue with this, building the full tarball, extract that to a separate directory, like a temporary directory, and then just sync like each individual file to S3. And then that way we can kind of change the sandbox and change kind of the scripts to just pull down the architecture that we want. And so those files will kind of be kind of exploded already and kind of easy to get at.
Okay, so this is rules mk.j2, right? Yeah.
Yes, is it, or is it? Yeah, J2.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll have a look and at this file, and we'll get back to you if I'll have any question.
Sure.
I want to add one more point in here. So there is one problem with the S3 bucket, that I think the location of this S3 is in US, I guess. So the people who are at our side are actually facing a lot of problem.
I will check. I'll double check that. We did move over when we first opened the project and got the domain set up. That was on someone's personal account, on Nathan's personal account, and he was out on leave, and so it's a little hard to get that from him. I think we've moved that all over. We're now hosting on our DNS and our name server and registries, and I'm pretty sure we've set up Cloudflare to project, and we just gotta mess with the URLs now, so that it points to Cloudflare instead of just straight to S3.
Okay.
I'll double check that, and I think I'll update the channel on where that's at.
Yeah, that would be great. I think, yeah.
Okay, so while we were introducing Tinkerbell, I was actually the first one to explore OZ and get the plugin thing. So I find it very hard to find that entry point where I can just go and okay, so like for any code we have this main thing, we have main.go and just start from there. Is there any kind of entry point from where I can go in and start exploring OZ from scratch again and understand it in all?
Yeah, I think apps is probably like the easier way to get it. That I've recently kind of reorganized it so that this is kind of the things that we boot into, right? I didn't mention Rescue, like in the console when you click into Rescue OS, this is that. It's all off of Aussie. And so this is kind of probably like the entry point into kind of what you boot into, right? Here is, like I mentioned, the discovery. Aussie installer is kind of what we provision now. Rescue, stuff like that.
And this is all based on the mode that we have in our kernel parameters.
Yes. And I think most certainly like the README here can be cleaned up quite a bit. It was kind of
for sure
based off of kind of like building from beforehand, when there's less things going on. And now that the kind of Aussie's like responsibilities are kind of changing to just being a live environment versus the scripts to install and actions to run, we can kind of update this README to kind of have better information for getting those things done.
And you also mentioned about breaking OZ into workflow actions. What do you really mean by that?
So we have right now we have these Docker scripts, right? This is what we actually run to install and deprovision kind of white machines when they come back to us. And so Aussie.sh is the big one, and this is where we do all the things like what is it? Download images, partition the disks, set up the network. This is just the main entry point for calling all those things, right? You can think of it as like the main.sh, right? And so all those things have already been broken out, and let me double check to see if it's already been open sourced or not.
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, all those scripts are the version, like the version one of the workflows. So,
yeah, that we work with.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. But then even still, like right here, this is just one giant script. There's a few like scripts that were broken out earlier, like CPR.sh, right? That's where there's a partitioning. Whereas I think repos configures like repositories mirrors.
So it adds
but we've actually we've actually, and I'll double check and most likely open it up pretty soon. But Aussie.sh, for example, we've broken that up into like separate actions like partition and fetch images and things like that. So it just kind of makes more sense as kind of workflow to kind of break it up and be able to reuse a bunch of things. Like we want to be able to reuse CPR, we want to reuse like fetch the images and things like that, and just going to be easier to do so.
Cool. So this is very much in line with what I did and what being continued with Alex and Dan later, which is now available as Tinkerbell workflows. If I'm not wrong, it's still open sourced.
And,
it's in private repo.
Oh, that's so awesome. And we probably discussed this another time, but we've been talking with Dan and Mark, as I think, maybe just Dan, about kind of changing the way like the installation works, right? Right now we lay files on disk, right? We partition the disk, we lay files on disk, we configure networking and things like that. And one of the things that we want for some images or maybe all images is to just DD the image files, right? That's kind of what we do for Windows here. We just kind of copy the file down and that's it. So there's going to be some support that we kind of need to do for to make that the case in Packet or in Equinix Metal, and then kind of making sure that also kind of works correctly and works well with like the rest of open source Tinkerbell. I think will make sense too.
Good. Probably.
Yeah.
I
I was
have
just
one
saying.
question to ask. So correct
Sure.
me if I'm wrong. So this workflow.sh is the one who executes the uh, Tink worker container in the worker node. So can you locate us to the point from where this workflow helper.sh file is triggered? I think it is done from the boots, I guess.
It's in the init script.
Yeah, so in installer Alpine, we have the init script files, right? And this just kind of to make things easier. And x86 yeah. These are kind of based on these are the vanilla files that are in Alpine's packages. And so we just kind of do slight modifications. And then in here is where we do,
Workflow mode. You should be able to search.
is it?
If the mode is workflow, it switches into workflow helper.
Yeah,
Yep,
so
there you
when we boot boots, it sets a packet action, right?
Yep.
Or is it around? Yeah, it sets a packet action, and then from here, if it's workflow, then the workflow helper is in the script will run. And currently, when this actually does it, it fetches from the network and then runs. It fetches the script and then runs it. One of the things I'd love to do is kind of embed that as part of the image, right? That was from back in the day when we would kind of have like the way deployment worked was much less deterministic, and we can mess with things live in production and test things, and we don't really do things like that anymore.
Okay. And there should also be a trigger point from the boots, which
Yeah.
actually execute the OC.
Where's the Aussie? And so, the way Aussie works is that when we get an HTTP request, right, for the auto.ipixie file, Boots will dynamically generate it, right, from information from workflow or in packet production or edge meta production from cacher. And depending on what kind of what state the hardware is in, we'll either go into rescue mode, install, and then in install we'll check if it's, if this hardware is set up to be able to workflow. And that's kind of one of those things that it's as we transition away from like the legacy mode, we kind of deal with this. And once we're all moved over in Equinix Metal, will be a bunch of crazy code to delete. It'll be great.
Initially, when we did,
so this is where we set the action.
Yeah. And initially, sometime in the October last year, when we did this, the initial plan was that going forward, or maybe near future, the only action that will remain here is workflow, or maybe something that will default to workflow. Yeah.
Right. No, I think pretty soonish, maybe within the next few months or so, we'll be able to get rid of everything that's not workflow. Yeah. And then I think this kind of brings about like this installer stuff, right? These are all code that Boots needs to have to kind of deal with different OSs that we support in Edge Metal, Equinix Metal. So all this kind of needs to go away, right? And so those are some of the proposals I've got where like the installed, the instance info and the services kind of all play in to be able to get rid of all this code from here. And so it's all just workflows. Cool. There's no kind of necessary, there's nothing needed to kind of have any of these per OS kind of configurations and code in Boots to handle.
Okay. Is a Devrel team working on this already, or it's just in the roadmap?
Say that again?
Is the team already working on it, or it's going to be in the roadmap?
No, so the team internally is focused on getting Tinkerbell to production, right? Okay. And what that means is making, basically replacing what we have internally Cacher with Tink, and having the API communicate with Tink instead of Cacher, and kind of change its model a little bit. But in reality, we're trying to stay like as backwards compatible as possible, right? That's that and we have a bunch of code in Boots and Hegel looking into hardware.metadata, and in theory,
Yep.
that is supposed to be used only for the workflows, right? None of our services should be looking to that. All the information should be well defined and part of the protocol specifications so that they can do their job. But Hego and Boots currently don't. And so once we get into production with that, and we can start moving code out from like the legacy mode and kind of have honestly like the time to kind of start working on cleaning up the instance or kind of any other kind of naming we have for it and things like that.
Cool.
Thanks.
This stuff, moving things around into actions, would be something really interesting to work upon.
Yeah, that is the proposal I have. I think kind of lays it up at a high level.
Okay.
I can definitely go into more detail about that at another point and kind of like what I think my thoughts are there.
Cool.
Okay, guys, sorry, but I have to call it down for now because we have other items
Yep.
on the agenda. So thank you, Manny, for highlighting OSI for us. So I hope it will help contributors to, make their first step on the project.
Sounds good.
So thank you for that. What's left? We have a Tinkerbell for telco use case ideation. I don't know how to say that. Ideation. I don't know. We try, but there is no name on it, so I don't know who wrote it.
Yeah, ideation.
CB.
Okay, so
Can you hear
it's
me?
your turn. Yes. Let me make you co-host so you can share your screen if you need it. So, yeah, you can go from here.
Okay. Just a moment.
Now we have choose CB.
Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a more of a kind of an ideation phase. So what I'm looking forward to have is that I want to suggest the Tinkerbell as a complete project for a telco use case. So with the evolution of the 5G and the network function virtualization, we are observing that the bare metal provisioning is also becoming as a part of an NFV. So far, we have some of the solutions where we are provisioning these network services on the top of a domain, and the domain can be a public cloud or a private cloud. And as a part of that, the bare metal is also becoming important for the edge use case or the cloud deployment as well. So what I mean by all these things and how it actually relate to the Tinkerbell, I will cover this in this short session. So I presume that most of the people would be fairly new to this architecture and basically to the telco side. So what I will do is that I will cover a small brief architecture overview, that what are the key components and how they are interrelated, and where will actually Tinkerbell fit. So this is a reference architecture which I have taken from the ITSI. So ITSI stands for European Telecommunications Standard International. So they have a complete um, I should say complete set of guidelines which define that how you can create virtual workloads and what would be the set of the components and how they are going to interact with each other. So this complete structure is actually called a MANO, which is called a management and network orchestrator. And this actually manages.
CB, sorry to interrupt you. Am I the only one who is not able to see the diagram?
Yep. No.
We see the first slide. You should go to the second one.
Yeah, we are still on the screen. There's only first slide, right?
First slide, yeah.
I'm actually showing the second slide.
CB, are you on the presentation mode?
Yeah.
Oh, we are actually seeing your Firefox window.
Now we
Okay.
see the second one. Now it's good.
And cool. Yep, should be good.
Maybe I think I will cover it without in the presentation mode so that you guys can see it. So this is the reference architecture, which I have taken from the ITSE, and ITSE is one of the core organization which manages the complete set of guideline publication that how this set of the components have to interact with each other. And ITSE is one of the means an organization which is backed by some of the major telco players like AT&T and Verizon, and they have defined all the structure and the set of the components so that the platform can be a vendor agnostic. And at the parallel side, we also have the ONAP. So ONAP is also for the network automation platform, and it is backed by Linux Foundation. And these are the major set of institutions who are actually providing the platforms and providing the reference architecture for NFV workloads. So NFV stands for Network Function Virtualization, and this is actually a set of components and provides a platform where you can create a virtual network services. And these virtual network services are individually set of VNFs, which stand for virtual network function. And when you stitch these virtual network functions, you create a set of service, and it can be a 5G service or a 4G service. You must have heard about virtual evolved packet core. So virtual evolved packet core is just a virtual form of evolved packet core, and it have some set of components which are created in form of the virtual network function. Even in your home, if you can see that you have some set of components like a router and router connected to a Wi-Fi. So you can think of that one of the VNF can be a router and the other could be a Wi-Fi. And when you stick them some kind of a forwarding rule, you can create a network service out of it. So this is how it is a very high overview of that how these components are working and how they are connected to each other. And in the current evolution, what people are trying to do is that they are trying to move away from the proprietary hardwares and trying to explore the cloud realm, that how these containerized workloads and the VMs are actually working. And in the current state, these VNFs are actually deployed in the form of a VM. And recently the Kubernetes has kind of become a very preferable platform, so that these virtual workload like the VNFs can be created in a containerized forms, so that the scalability and the resiliency, those aspects can be addressed. So in this complete evolution, this Manu has played a very important role. It has some set of components which is called an orchestrator and a VNF manager, and these both jointly manages the life cycle of a VNF. So you can consider that you have created a network service which has some set of network functions, and this orchestrator and VNF manager are together managing the complete network service, that how they would be created, when they would be terminated, or if there's some kind of a loopback policy associated to like scaling aspects, similar to what we have in the Kubernetes. When you define a spec file, you define that what are the attributes those would be related to the deployments or the replicas. So similarly, in Mano, this job is managed by the orchestrator and the VNF manager. And in this part, the important thing for us to actually look forward is for the virtual infrastructure manager. So virtual infrastructure manager is a kind of a key entity, which is a kind of a bridge between the NFVI. NFVI stands for Network Function Virtualization Infrastructure. So it can be an open stack. Recently, as I said, the Kubernetes is coming into the picture. So Kubernetes platform um, is also an NFVI, and most of the people are also building up the private clouds. So these are the core components, and this is a very, very high level overview of that how these components are connected and they are talking to each other. And here, what I'm suggesting is that these virtual infrastructure manager is actually talking to the underlying cloud platform, and on the top of this cloud platform, the VNFs or the network services are running. So with the recent use cases where the edge cloud is also coming in, I presume that the Equinix has also a one of the solution is network edge, where they are creating the use case where you can directly create the VNF or the network services directly on the edge cloud. I think Equinix is also exploring the network as a service solution. So what I was suggesting is that as an ideation phase, maybe we can have a virtual infrastructure manager as a Tinkerbell. So whatever the specs file or the complete management is done by the orchestrator and the VNF manager. So Tinkerbell can be placed as a infrastructure manager which can talk to the NFVI, and the NFVI can be our bare metal server on which the VNF can be created, on the top of which this VNF can be created. So basically the Tinkerbell would in a way would be executing the set of workflows for creating a VNF on the top of a bare metal or a complete rack server on these, on the top of which these network services would be running. So this is something I wanted to suggest so that we can also have a this picture in part of our Tinkerbell project, so that we can also have this overview that this can also be a possible use case. So as a part of that, these are the three major proponents which I am suggesting, and maybe we can have in our roadmap. The first part is that which I suggested, that Tinkerbell is a bare metal VIM. So what we can think of that when a VNF is supposed to be deployed, all the specs and the details can be pushed into the orchestrator and the VNF manager, and that can be translated to virtual infrastructure management, then to the top of the bare metal engine. So how this would actually work? So you can think of that as of now, we have some set of cloud service archive files which are pushed onto the top of orchestrator and then via the VIM to the NFVI, and then how the VNF workloads are created. So you can think of that instead of pushing those cloud service archive, we are pushing the workflows, which have all the set of actions where that what is the OS that needs to be deployed, and then what is the VNF which needs to be created, what would be the underlying networking schema that needs to be implemented on the server, and if we have a rack server, so what would be the configuration of the complete rack and how they would be interacting with each other. So you can think of that just by, since we already have the workflows, so we can deploy all these services on the top of that. And again, later those VNF and the network services can be managed by the orchestrator and the VNF manager. Now, how would actually they would be working? So as of now, for the Mano, we have the ONAP from the Linux networking side and the Tacker as the Mano from the OpenStack. So we can actually write some plugins so that that can be integrated with the ONAP and the Tacker. So Tacker is a Mano solution for the OpenStack, and I think Ironic, which is also a bare metal server provisioning engine from the OpenStack, they have some plans. I think Cisco have already done it, where they are using the Ironic to create a set of services or the solution on the top of a complete bare metal. I think that is NXXT, which they are using. So what actually works is that these devices which I'm talking about, it can means the NXT, or there are other proprietary hardwares like the core specific virtual switches. They can be created in the virtual forms, and then they can be directly deployed on the top of these bare metal servers. And since we have a solution, the Tinkerbell, which actually does that, so we can integrate it via some plugins to the Mano solutions like the ONAP and the Tacker. So this is one of the proposition which I am suggesting. The other is for the edge deployment. So as I said that the Unix has already some of the solution, the network as a service, and the network edge. The other, there are two solutions. The one is the network as a service. I think they are already working on that, and the other is network edge, which they are using to directly deploy the edge services on the edge cloud. So there also we can have the Tinkerbell as a solution, which can does those form of deployment via the workflows. So that is the other case. And the third one is the Tinkerbell workflows for the NFVI setup. So NFVI setup is just like the underlying cloud, which I mentioned, that it can be an OpenStack or the Kubernetes. So I think the Kubernetes is something which the community is already trying. They want to deploy the Kubernetes using the Tinkerbell via some set of the workflows. Jason has already made some good progress on that. I'm also contributing on it. our recently member in this week is also trying to deploy the Kubernetes using that. So that can be used to create the complete NFVI setup, and then that can be integrated with the Mano, which can be an ONAP or the Tacker. So in this way, we are moving the Tinkerbell in the part of the telco use cases also, where the telco companies like the Dell or Cisco, they would also consider as a solution along with the Ironic or the other bare metal provisioning solutions. And this would actually certainly require some effort for writing the plugin so that it can be integrated with the Mano, and some set of investigation from our end also, that how we can create a set of VNFs or the network service basically on the network management part, and make this as a working solution.
Thank you for the presentation. Go on.
Just a bit. I need to leave, so I'll catch up on recording. I have something urgent. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. I just want to move quickly because we have Michael here and he kindly placed his item on the agenda. So I want to give him some time to show his demo. We're gonna be a bit late, I presume, but I'm sure it will pay back. So you are co-host now, and yeah,
Always.
you are co-host now, so you can share your screen and let us know.
Actually, I don't have anything to show. Just that was more of a question of. I'm thinking about production readiness, and I don't think that Docker Compose is a long-term, is a good solution in long term. So I was starting to think of deploying in Kubernetes, and anyways, we needed that somehow at Container Solutions, because we were deploying both on the network switch for the telco use case, and part of Tinkerbell was deployed on a Kubernetes cluster. So the idea was to start working on doing that. I saw that some of you did a very great job with Kind so far. So I'm just wondering, what's the plan to go forward? Is this going to be in the main development branch at some point, or?
I think Jason is the right person to answer this question.
Yeah, so long-term, the goal is, yes, to get everything merged in. The work in my branch right now is, I don't think it's quite ready to get merged in. A lot of the Kubernetes manifests that are being used are kind of like hard-coded right now to work in that kind environment versus being able to work standalone. And that I think would probably be the last blocker that needs to be solved. And once that's done, we can work on trying to get everything merged where it needs to be, I think.
Okay, so maybe I can help on that part, because basically what I did is I integrated the thing I didn't in the current workflow. So you just have to set up to use Kubernetes to true, and then it's going to run Kubernetes instead of Docker Compose. And actually it takes the certificates already built. It used the environment files, so it reused already a couple of things that are there, so nothing is hard-coded in there. So you can have a look at what you did and try to merge our stuff in there, and maybe merge in the main branch as soon as possible, because I think that it would help to get faster development for things like operator or stuff like that.
Yep. Sounds good.
I agree. Let's get it merged.
Okay, target next 2 weeks, it's going to be in May, right?
That's it. And you know who to ping about it. So Jason is your person.
Yeah. Great.
It was a good rush. I mean, we made it. So that's good. At some point, I thought that some item was gonna stay out from the agenda, but we made it. So thank you for that. And I presume we can, well, see you all on GitHub and talk to you next week.
Cool.
So
Bye-bye.
thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.